How's it going, everyone? It's Ben Foggins Media Corner back again with a brand new video for today. Welcome back to yet another movie review, aka After I Saw review video for today. For this aka After I Saw review video for today, this is going to be my review on a film that was released last year in 2021, which this one, I really wanted to review this film last year around the time when this was released, but around the time when this was released, there was a lot of other films that was coming at the same time as this film. And I was reviewing some of them, but there was still a few I need to catch up on. But since it's since it's been passed through all that, and this movie will be soon a year older in 2 months' time, I decided to give you guys my personal opinion on this movie since a few of my friends have already reviewed this film. So today's review is going to be my review on the 2021 superhero film, and this is the sequel to the 2018 superhero film, and that movie is, of course, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. So this is, of course, the sequel to Venom, which Venom was released back. The first Venom was released back in 2018, and it wasn't that well received with critics. But audiences, they really enjoyed the film a lot more than critics did. I did enjoy the film, which when I saw it in the cinemas back in 2018, I thought it was just enjoyable, but there was some problems with the film. And this sequel was not directed by Ruben Fleischer, who made the first movie. This was directed by this man who I like to call him myself, the king of motion capture himself, Andy Serkis. He is behind the camera for the sequel. And so in this sequel to Venom, we see Eddie Brock is back once again, played by Tom Hardy, aka Venom. And pretty much in the sequel, we see him that he goes to visit this serial killer named Cletus Cassidy, played by Woody Harrelson, who is incarnated for his crimes. And once Eddie interviews Cletus gets some of Eddie's DNA blood, and gets some of Eddie's blood, like some of his DNA that's been affected with this black symbiote stuff that Eddie has inside of his body, which is of course Venom. And once Cletus catches it, it starts to basically affect his body, and then he becomes this alternate version of Venom known as Carnage once he was about to be executed for his crimes. And once we see Cletus as Cassidy, of course, he goes on a rampage, and of course he escapes from prison, where he goes to find his loved one and reunite with her, since he was separated from her all those years ago. And her name is Shriek, played by Naomie Harrison. Both of them and for these two characters, they want to get married. And once Eddie finds out that Cletus has escaped from prison and learns that he's got some of his DNA and has become an alternate version of Venom, it's basically up to Eddie and Venom to try and team up together despite their differences. And they have to, work together to basically go up against Cletus as Carnage. So it's basically this movie. So this movie is just basically these two famous big comic book characters go head to head. So that's pretty much the story of Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Now, like I said before, for the first movie, Venom, which was released back in 2018, I remember seeing that. I went to see that one in the cinemas back in 2018, and I thought the film was enjoyable, despite it had problems, mostly for not being a violent superhero film, which I really wanted it to be. The tone was kind of shifted around a lot, and some of the action wasn't great, and the villain didn't even work for me whatsoever. I still managed to have an enjoyable time with it, despite that critics didn't even receive the film very well. Well, audiences, they received the film a lot more than critics did. And when I heard we were getting a sequel to this, of course, I was really looking forward to it, because again, Venom is one of my favorite villains of the Spider-Man universe. He's always been my number one favorite. And once I heard that Carnage was going to be in this movie, of course, I was really excited for that the most, because I've always wanted to see Carnage on the big screen in a Spider-Man movie. And I've always wanted that as a kid, but once I heard we were getting him in this movie, I was really surprised to see that, just to see Venom and Carnage go head to head with each other. I was really looking forward to that. And when I heard that Ruben Fleischer was not going to be directing this, I wasn't disappointed. I wasn't upset or anything. I just didn't even know what was going on with that. What happened with that? I guess he was busy doing some other things around the time. I think he was probably busy with the Uncharted film that he did do that was released this year. But once I heard that Andy Serkis was behind the camera, I was really intrigued to see what he can do for this movie, because this is not his only film he's ever made. He has made a few other films before in the past. He's made Breathe with Andrew Garfield, and he even made Netflix's original film of Mowgli: Legend of the Jungle, which is another live action adaptation of the Jungle Book. that's the only one I've seen, and I did enjoy the film, although I much prefer the actual live action Disney remake from 2016. It was great to see, you know, Tom Hardy coming back to do this movie, as well as Michelle Williams, who was also in the first movie, and for Woody Harrelson, who did appear briefly in the first movie. I was really excited to see what he was going to do for the character of Carnage. And you also have some new other people in the sequel, like Stephen Graham, which he has appeared in a few things here and there, and Naomie Harris, who you of course may know as Moneypenny from the Daniel Craig Bond films, you know, from Skyfall to No Time to Die, and as well as in my favorite film of 2016, Moonlight. I was really intrigued to see what she can do for this movie. And once the trailers dropped by, of course, I was really pumped for this movie. And this film was originally scheduled for an October release in 2020 until it got delayed because of the pandemic. And then it got moved to September, then it got delayed again towards October of last year, and then I even heard it was going to be delayed again, and I was hoping, please no, because I didn't want that to happen. And when I heard it was not going to be pushed next year, I was really pleased, because I was dying to see this film. And so I went to see this on opening day, which was the 15th of October, which was released 2 weeks after it was first released in the US, because this was released on the 1st of October. And for my screening, there wasn't that much people on my screening, but there was still quite a few people on my screening. And after walking out of this one, I can definitely say that this movie was even better than the first one. I enjoyed this one a lot more than the first movie here, you guys. But obviously, this is not a perfect film, because there's quite a few flaws I did have with this movie, which we'll get to later on. But the things I could definitely say that were good in this film were the acting. Tom Hardy is still really good in this movie as Eddie Brock and Venom, and the chemistry between the two of them is pretty entertaining for the most part. And when we see them bickering on with each other. And for its entertainment value in this film, it has a few combinations to it, like the humor, like with its humor, like the humor is pretty over the top, it's pretty silly, it's pretty goofy, and it's pretty tongue in cheek. Really, it's pretty tongue in cheek as well. And for having all of that combined, I thought it worked pretty well in this film. And the film that never managed to take itself way too seriously for its entertainment value and all that, because it just takes itself pretty well done, just not like way too seriously. And as for the performances, Michelle Williams was pretty good in the movie. Naomie Harris was good as Shriek. Stephen Graham was good too in the movie, and Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy, aka Carnage. I thought he was pretty good in the movie, and he was also entertaining. But I wouldn't say this is one of Woody Harrelson's best roles, but he is still good in the movie as both Cletus and Carnage. And once we get to see Carnage on the screen, on the big screen, it is really exciting to see. And I really liked the voice of Carnage really well. I thought that fit really well for the character. And for the action sequences, it's pretty well directed by Andy Serkis, but for the editing choices for those scenes, I kind of found them pretty odd, really, because it's mostly due to censoring out the blood in this film, since this is not a violent superhero film, which, you know, for the first Venom film, that was the weakest aspect, which is it's not violent, because it is a PG-13 superhero film. But still, though, the action was pretty entertaining in this movie. And but for the scenes that did censor out the blood, you can just picture in your head what you think it could have been like, as well as for like there's some disturbing scenes in the film too, which you can just also picture that in your head. Which that was one of the weakest aspects I have of this movie. And when there are some times in the film where it tries to get a bit serious, and it kind of like for some parts in the film it does get a bit too serious, which that's another weakest aspect I have of the film. It almost kind of ruined the film for me. And also its storytelling. Well, the main storytelling isn't too bad. For some storylines in the film, it's kind of I just found it pretty much weak for myself. And the film is pretty short as well. It's only an hour and 37 minutes. The first film was only an hour and 52. The movie never dragged on. It never really made me bored to tears, because I still managed to have a pretty solid time in this film. And overall, in the end, guys, Venom Let There Be Carnage, it was a pretty good sequel. I enjoyed this one a lot more than the first film. But again, it's not a perfect film. Despite the flaws it did have this one, I still managed to have a pretty fun time with this one. And if you were a fan of the first film, or if you're a fan of the character of Venom or Carnage, or the fan of the cast or the director, you may have a good solid time. You may have a good time with this one like I did. If you miss a chance to see this in cinemas, it will be available to basically stream on any app of your choice, or you just want to go out and just find your own copy for your collection. So that's all I have to say about Let There Be Carnage. I'm going to give Venom Let There Be Carnage 3.5 out of 5. solid score. Despite the flaws I did have with the sequel, I still managed to have a good, fun, silly time with this one. And if you came to see that in this movie, you're gonna get all of that in this movie. And also, if you came to see just Venom and Carnage go head to head, you're gonna get that as well in this movie. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching for my AK After I Saw review on Venom Let There Be Carnage. And let me know what you think of the sequel if you have seen this already. If you've just recently seen the sequel, did you have a blast with this, or were you very disappointed with this? So thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more reviews. And as always, this has been Falcons Media Corner signing off.